Good morning, everyone, and good evening. Today we will see the the final step in our building real-time data pipeline, which is a dashboard, right? Uh, or the visualization layer, where we want to publish our data from the storage layer to visualization. So the basically the aggregate data we want to publish to the visualization layer. So for this, as I mentioned earlier, just I use the Django application, but this can be replaced with any other dashboards, like any other reporting tools, like Power BI or Tableau or any other. Or you can build a custom web app itself to show your data. So it's not mandatory that we have to use the Django application. I was just trying with a few things in Django, so that's why I built it. So you can use any other visualization library as well. Like instead of chart.js, you can use D3.js or any other JS like the chart.js libraries. Okay. So we will open our code. If you look at the project structure, so from the e-commerce real-time case study folder, you will find different projects, right? So you just have to open this folder, real-time chart, and so this is a root folder. Inside that, you will find many folders. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, so one is chart and real-time charts and statics and the templates. Okay, so if you see Django project, so basically in Django we create a project. The project can contain multiple applications, right? So our project name is real-time chart. This is kind of root folder, okay? So the root folder where you have a project folder, and then you have a chart is a one application folder. So in the root folder, always you will find a file called manage.py, and then the requirement.txt. If you want to put dependency packages inside this and want to install the packages using pip install -r by providing this. So otherwise you will have, if you don't have this file, so generally you in the root folder you will find a manage.py, which will use to for starting creating a Django applications. And for creating Django project, you will use Django admin command. And for creating a Django applications, you have to use the manage.py, and running the Django web development server. Everything we will be using the manage.py. And you will also find db.sql3. So basically, we need a backend to, when we say backend, is basically the database, any database to store our data, which we build in the using Django. So Django is basically a web framework to build a web application. So we need some kind of database server. So we use the thin database called SQLite 3. By default, Django comes with the SQLite 3. But if you want to store with the different databases, you can configure in the there is a file called, if you go to the real-time chart, this is the actually project folder in terms of Django. So you will find something called settings.py, and you can, all the project related configuration is kept in this file. This is a very important file. Like the first important file is the manage.py, which will be in root folder, and the second important file in this Django project is settings.py, which will be inside your project folder. Okay, apart from that, you will have urs.py. This is another important file, and you will find other files like asgi.py, ws.py. Okay, so this is asynchronous server gateway interface. and web server gateway interface. There is 2 files. So we will go through one by one in a couple of minutes. So before that, I'll just give you a high level about the Django framework, how it works. Okay. So basically, Django, as I mentioned, is a web framework, right? It actually follows the model view template architecture. Anyone working on application side or having knowledge on application development side? I assume. Okay. Okay. No.
No.
Okay. All right. Fine. So I'll just go in very high level. I'll not go in detail. Uh, so because it's optional, right? This section is optional. You can go with reporting to us, but for the benefit of you, I'll just tell. Okay. So just you can just have it in your mind. So in one of the famous web architecture is the model view controller. Okay. Uh, and the another architecture is a model view template. In the model view controller and model view templates acts as the same, only that little different. The terminology wise little difference is there. Otherwise, it's almost same. So Django works on model view template architecture. That means, say example, as a user, okay, I'll just go and example, take this okay, so this is my website. Okay, so I'll just give DataMaking.com. Okay, so this is the web application built using Django. So when I hit this application, right, so what I generally give is the URL, right, where I give some URL path. Okay, so if example, it can be like uh, master class. Okay, so if I hit like this, so the URL path is the domain name. Okay, and then followed by the master class. Okay, when you hit this, so the Django application receives this request with the URL saying the domain name or the in general host name colon port. Until then, it's basically your host URL and followed by the path URL path, which is a slash masterclass, right? So if you receive this request, okay, the request will be sent to the initially. It will be sent to the it will be sent to the something called urls.py. Okay, so if you look at here, so in the project you will have something called urls.py. It will come and it will look for the respective path. So if your project in Django, we should have uh, we will have project, and I said you will have applications. Okay, if you don't have application, generally the Django uses the there is a Django comes with the admin portal. Okay, so it will go and call the admin portal. Okay, that's why you and by default it opens the default page. Okay, and then you can also use the admin portal to navigate it. Okay, and if you create applications, then you can mention the application URL. So example, if the URL path is say example, you just give domain name alone, you just say localhost colon port number. When you run a Django application, by default it runs in the local machine with the 8000 port number. So if it's so, then I'm just telling go and navigate to the I'm navigating to the or redirecting to the chart.url. That means I'm redirecting to my application URLs files. Okay, it will come to the charts. There is a file called URLs. So always your project and the application should have urls.py, because that is the entry point. Whenever the user sends the request, the URL, it comes to the urls.py. Then, so in the urls.py, so it will comes to the first project. So the project URLs file, and it says if it is empty, there is no like if there is no root path, means the URL path, it is empty, it goes to the, I mentioned that go and redirect to the my chart.py URLs file, okay, which is my application. And then again, if it is empty, just localhost colon 8000, I have to so I will say, so when URLs when it comes to the urls.py, based on the URL path, I will navigate to the views, something called views. View is nothing but act as a controller to fetch the data from model. When you say model, basically it's a POJO objects, which will be bind to the database server. This is the model. Model will have the data, which will be binded to the databases. Okay, and you retrieve the data from model, and then so it has to render the HTML, right? So because the HTTP finally the server has to render the HTML. So you will have something called templates. Templates is nothing but where you define all your HTML pages, web pages, right? So it takes the web page based on the URL path, okay, and then it's embed your data into the whatever data you retrieve from model. It embedded to the HTML, and then it sends the HTML response to the browser. Okay, so URL is a starting point. Based on the user request, it comes to the urls.py. Then based on the path, it goes and it goes to the views. In the views, you will say, actually in the view, if you see, I'll just open views.py, where you will define many views are function based is there, class based is there. Function based means you will define a function and you will call this function on particular URL. So if it is there is no URL path, I'll just call the index, which is nothing but function, one of the function in the views. So I'll call this function, and then I'm just rendering the base.html, and I'm passing the content as text, one text message I'm passing. So that will be rendered in the base.html. So this is my so HTMLs are kept in the template folder. So in this folder, the remaining things I will come to later. So that I will be using here. So using the so something like that. You can say H2. So whatever I'm passing here, I can use using this Jinja template. They call it as Jinja template. Whatever the value passed through the view, it will be rendered on the you see, it will be rendered on the HTML using the Django template. Okay, so this is how the Django application flow works. Any question on this?
Maybe can you open that URL and see whether the new ones are reflecting?
Okay, so
the text which we the line number 41 is rendering the hello world, right?
okay, so for that, okay, so I will do that. For that, I need to make few changes. Basically, okay. So when we use the HTTP request as HTTP response, it uses something called web server gateway interface. Okay, if you see the project folder, web server gateway interface, right? And then so it uses the synchronous connection. So you make a request, it will render. Okay, I am using a Django, something called Django channels to support asynchronous call. Like from web browser, I'm making a call. Okay, and every 5 seconds, I'm actually making a call. I just make a call to the WebSocket and get the connection. Okay, so I'm using this asynchronous call. So I'm using the asynchronous gateway servers, right? So I'll just comment out that portion because we will discuss that part. Okay, for just to reflect the data what we put it there, I'll just comment out this portion. Okay, we will start that. Okay, so first how you need to start. So you just log into your VM and go to this path. So you'll be in the home folder, right? So in the home folder, you can just navigate to the this. Just go to the Django application. Okay, let me run Python manage.py. And so, okay, and then if you open it here, and 192 dot with bottom 8000. Okay, so I ran it with the localhost. So I did not do so to run it from to access from locally. You have to run with 0.0 that way. Let me open it in VM. Launch a browser here. Street is pointing to still it is pointing to gateway only. This is one.
But we need to be in the index page only, right?
Yeah, that's what actually I made a changes in the application. By default, right, Django uses the web-based gateway interface for the synchronous connection, right? If you want to use Django channels, we have to enable the web's asynchronous server gateway interface to work with the Django channels. Django channels with interns, WebSockets, other stuff. For that, I actually modified. This is the one way to change, right? So I made the change. So that's the reason it goes there. Let me change that. So here, this is fine. And this, okay, comes to URL. Okay. I will just comment out these two. This is in this one and open the this is fine. Let me stop and start. It's still using the ASG channels. Okay, so this has to be changed to WSSI. Where is the other change I have to make?
Then maybe in manage.
Yes, also it comes to settings only. It comes to
Income chart.
settings. It comes to settings.py, and the settings.py, we just comment out the ASGI. It should go to that only. Any other place we will change. Okay, change. For now, I'll just remove the channels also. Keep this and cut it here. This to include channels. Cut that as well. And then the paste HTML. No, this is more of HTML stuff. Where else? Okay, let's see. I'll stop it again. Still, let's. This one will also. Okay, so these all the changes I'm doing it in my local, right? So that's a problem. So let me run it here. My bad. Okay, let me run from my local machine only. You know, right? So I'm making changes in my local, but I'm running the server thing. So okay, so if disconnects, use the same link and join back. Okay, CMD and my to take dot slash dot. I know my Django. Sorry. Okay. Area CD code. I have an environment here, so just go to DataMaking and then scripts. Here. So in Windows, you will find actually the Python environment folder will have a script file. So you have to go to the script file and then start the activate dot.bat. Now let's activate it. Now I'll go to the path. Okay, this path is open it in browser. Till this one. This path. CD C:4 we have manage.py here. So Python manage.py run server. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's use the. So some MySQL issues there in my local. So let me come on, just roll back to the SQLite and then we'll see. Okay, just so all your DB connection has to be, yeah, it's 1 point. So you can change a different DB connection. So if you change the database, this is the environment variable databases. If you allocate your respect to database, it will point to that. So currently it is pointing to MySQL. I'll comment out this and enable the default one, which is SQLite. Yes, in my local, the SQL client, I'm not able to install, having some issue. So I'll enable this. Okay, this is so in here. So now it says starting the development server. Okay, now if you open this, you see there is a message saying hello world here. Okay, if I go and change, I stop here. I'll go and change in the views file. Yes, that looks charts views file. Instead of hello world, I'll say hello world DataMaking. So if I start again and refresh, so this gets it. So this is how the synchronous way of communicating. So you may make a request. So it comes to the project URLs that file, right? Okay, and where we included charts dot URLs, so which in turn goes to this file, and based on the path, it calls the index.py. This is a function based view, so it calls to the function which is there in the view, and in the view we are entering the base.html with this content. So in the HTML file, we just read this message using the Jinja format. Jinja table.
Thanks, very.
Okay. So that's basically the simple Django flow. Okay. So then you can have a form, and if you submit a form, then it comes as a, based on the URL, it comes as a post request. So in HTTP, so what protocol we use, the HTTP protocol, right? We make HTTP request and a response comes. So basically HTTP requests of either a post request or a get request, and we have a delete and put request also, but very basic requests are get and post. So mostly the post request comes to the form data. So if you have form, the data will come there. So that's the basic HTML, basic Django application, how it works. So this is a flow. Okay, whatever I showed is the basic HTTP flow. Now we want actually, what I want is, so in this way also, what I can do is, in the view, I can actually put a kind of a loop in the views.html. I can just put a one loop, okay, and a kind of a while loop, and keep calling the function. I'll just keep calling the model. I can just get the models, okay, and read the database value and show it, render it to the HTML. That is also one way. If you don't want to use the Django channels, if you want to use the synchronous way, you can keep a loop and call the models and get the data and show it render into the HTML. Okay, so still
But every time,
yes.
so for that, every time we need to rerun our server?
No. So when the moment it comes here, so moments you run, that's the one time you run. Here, what I'm saying is in the loop, it's the view. I just want to this. I want to keep it in a loop. Okay, so it'll keep calling the function and render the value. Okay, and then that is one way. Okay, but that is not actually the advisable way. Generally, we have to use the asynchronous way of communication. If you want to have a long connection and make the HTTP if you want to connect the web server and get the data. So if you have to need to have a long connection and keep it open and get the data from the server and post it on your web UI. Okay, for that, we will be using something called WebSocket. Okay, WebSocket helps us to make a long running connection and interact. So in this WebSocket, both two-way communication is possible in the WebSocket. So server can, so client can request the data, server will respond it, and server also can request data from the client. Okay. We will discuss that in the minute. Okay. So we have only 1 minute left. We will disconnect and connect back. You please join with the same link.